This is Restoration Games Return to Dark Tower. There's the base game, and if you've purchased the minis, and then they had 2 expansions, Alliances, which came out during the first Kickstarter, and Covenant, which was their reprint and second edition expansion. So the one thing I'll show you is that they have this gorgeous boxing and packaging. You know, they have these nice, prefab inserts in here for all of the items, and it does a great job. They put out just an amazing product. Their trays and everything, they're just great work. The problem that I have is if you want to take this game to a friend's house, to a convention, you're just taking a lot of stuff with you, or you're trying to minimize the amount of content that you have. So in here you've got, 2 vac trays, really done to hold all the minis for the bosses and the typical monsters you'd fight. And none of this stuff really is, stuff like this isn't necessary. But let's face it, a game that has such great table presence, they do a good job. So this is the vac pack that comes inside the base game. So you have a little holder for the skulls and the different buildings and the characters, and then underneath you've got a clamshell holding the tower in place, some components, the monster tokens, and the cards. So they do just this really good, simple package, and it all fits in this main box, and they show you this fairly detailed thing of how to layer everything back and put it in place. They do a good job. This is just the back of the box sticker that comes with, not sticker, but print that comes with it. And so what I've tried to do is take everything from that and put it into the primary box. And I've replaced all the cardboard components that I can with the coffers. So this is really designed for someone that's gone all in on the game, and it fits in the original box without any lift, so you're not damaging any of the components. So these are the character sheets, so I should probably do it this way, for all of the characters from all of the expansions. Put that in the lid. Obviously the instruction manuals, just so if you want to play with any of the different versions, you're good to go. Now, while I love the neoprene mat, which I'm telling you, if you have this game, get the neoprene board. It's larger, it's beautiful. But this is designed to hold the original cardboard, game board with it. So if you haven't seen this game, let me tell you, it is amazing. But this sits in there. Now, the only components that I have that are loose are the 4 guild boards, which you'd use if you were playing with the Alliances expansion. Get them out of here. And then the bag that holds the colored skulls. So if you're playing with that one, we have to randomize the color of the skulls. This would be in play. And here you see, well, let's see, there you go. Which way we want to go? This is the base design of how I visualize everything. So I've seen other people do it. I wanted to build my own because I have 3D printed bases to match the color of the miniatures. Whites being the level 2, level 3, level 4, and the adversaries have a red base. It matches the color of the cards and the theme of the game. I have 4 boxes over here on the side which hold different characters. So you can see their bases, you have their virtues. Whoops, as I'm shooting him out of there. That's why I have the front face on it. All the different virtues for the characters are stored right in line. So basically you can match the color base. I have a small tweak I might do to these boxes. As you can see, there's no walls on the inside here. The reason I did that, I had them with walls, but there's a couple of characters that came in the Covenant expansion that have like long reach arms out there that the walls actually get in the way of them being stored properly. So let me just move a few pieces out of the way here so I can get to the other ones easier. So here's the original design that had the walls in that. I may leave this in the package of the STL files if you want to print ones like that and then specifically have one for the 2 minis that have the long reach. But you would print 3 of these trays, or with or without walls, right? And that holds 9 of the characters. And then the 10th character goes in a one-off box. So this has the virtues for the north, the south, the east, and the west for the champions. And it has a little lock on the top. So when you take off the lid, there's the character. Here comes out the lock. And here you have the tokens for spores, the tokens for siege trees, the different dungeon, what do you want to call them, chevrons, and the battlements. So for different modes in the game, depending on which characters you're playing, so on and so forth, you will need some of those tokens. And that little cross lever prevents them from sliding out. And then, oops, if I put it in the right direction, I'm sure this will work a lot better. So the one thing that matters to me, wherever possible, that little click lock, so that the lids will stay on. A lot of people make inserts. A lot of people make great inserts, but that little click lock on the cover, just to make sure that it stays in tight, it's kind of my little thing. I don't want any elements of my game board sliding around. I don't want to like fix the Bank of Monopoly when I sit down to play a game. Now, I stole this idea from somebody. The bottom of the card holder has a little push-up. So this is every different type of the smaller size cards in the game. Again, everything is designed to be sleeved. I use Game Genius matte finish sleeves, so they're pretty thick, but that's the holder for all of the small cards. On the side, it's probably going to be hard to see unless I can just angle this right. Yeah, that camera's going yellow for some reason. I'll have to solve that. Oh, it's catching overhead light. But the names and what slot and the purpose of the cards are there on the side. I would probably suggest going old school Dungeons and Dragons, filling those in with crayon and doing a wipe, and that way you've got a contrast and can see the names real easy. And depending on the quality of your printer, obviously the quality of the wording will be there. I kind of hit this one gently with a wax, so you can see that there's like a white effect on it. This is all of the large cards, and in the center, the replacement heroic action tiles that come with, you know, when you're ever trying to do something in a hurry, it never happens. It sits a little lower. I didn't feel like doing anything super different for it, but that is, again, all of the large cards. The treasures separated out by expansion, the companions separated out by expansion, the foe cards, and again, everything with that little click and lock to hold it in place. On the side of the small one is this little tiny compartment. This holds the coffer tokens for the monuments, the offering token cubes, and the 4 guild tokens. So I hadn't really come up with a good solution for those otherwise, so I put them in a little small box, stuck them in along with the small cards on the side, and that's that. So I'm building up a little collection of stuff over here as I empty the box. Now we have the 2 monument holders. So these play 2 roles, right? One is to, you know, fill in the space. Obviously, 2 is to hold the different monument minis that come with the Covenant expansion. So just a funky shaped box. And in this other one, I actually have a place to store all the colored skulls. Yes, I can speak. Colored skulls. So you obviously can cover this with your hand, dump that out of the bag, whatever you want to do. But again, the click lock just to make sure they're not, you know, rolling around in your box. This one has a weird little piece on the edge that I left in the print, and the focus of that is really to kind of keep the arced guild boards in place. And as tempting as it is to move to this guy, I'll save him for the end. Slit in the middle, this little guy that hangs out between the top of the tower in that little weird pattern holds the Alliance's influence vessel and the Kingdom of the Realm, or the Coin of the Realm, or whatever, if you have that. So obviously if you pull this out, this will slide out the back. It is its back wall because it's such a narrow place, but you're probably going to use the coin more than you'll use the vessels. But that's just that little tiny piece there. All right, to make things easier, I will take the minis out for now. We'll put them over here. I promise we'll get there. The tower sits in a two-piece little cradle, right? So if we take the tower out, which, let's put this out front because let's face it, that is a cool looking element of the game. So there's two pieces to the tower. One is just a very basic shell that holds and, you know, contains the bottom part. And then there's the upper shell. Let's see which is the best way to see it on both. No, put it there. So if you lift up the upper shell, I printed this one a little snug. These two boxes contain the buildings. Now, I realize that this is probably the most frustrating design when it comes to getting the buildings to fit underneath this in the space, and I've tried a few different versions. You will have to kind of finagle and fuss with how you get the right layout to get the buildings in the boxes the way that you want. Once you get it, you've got it. At the top of the upper left-hand side of the tower, I have 4 little containers. I'm going to put a lid on this one. I haven't printed it out yet. Whoopsie. But this is just the river of fire. I've seen some people do, you know, little... Oh, I need to make that a little shorter, and I will. You know, little shorter, just scoop trays. Again, I'm not cool on letting things fall out, so I want to have restraints in there to keep these from bouncing out should you move the box around. That was a fun one to do anyways. Underneath that, these are the 4 quest markers. They do have bases on them, and one of them I think I've beat up too much, so he likes to lose his base wherever possible. There it is. I won't edit this out because this will remind me that I need to print this guy again. But yeah, you know, should you use the alliances, it's meant to be a little snug. I don't want things bouncing around. There is kind of, you want to put them in a certain pattern so that they fit in right. But, you know, hey, look, your guild marker, your quest markers, and, you know, fleshing out the wedge. At the bottom, there's just a boring filler. This is just to give it some height. Push it up. This is, I think 50 millimeters, 55, 25. I scaled everything to kind of leave room at the top of the box. And then the last part that I'm particularly happy with is, I'll get that over there, are my little token trays. I like to have token trays that are, you know, on the board. So, you know, a nice and simple tray that's, you know, scooped corners, so a little push, you'll shoot things out one way or the other. Warrior's Spirit, and should you play alliances, the influence is there. I could have spit it off in its own box, but it was useful to have it there. Finally, in this one, you have the advantage tokens, the wasteland tokens, the protect, the charge, the haggle die, and the white skulls. So these two will probably be used more than, you know, most of the elements in the game. So I figured, yep, that's a good idea. Let's put them there. So once you get used to the layout and the arrangement, putting things back together isn't overly complex. Now, I can't remember. Let's see if I remember if I get this right. Right? The pressure's on stream to pack up everything at the end of the day. And we will see if Micah remembers this right. I think that was like that. And then I should be able to put this there. And I should be able to put this there. So that's pretty much that. Now, the wider box goes underneath and tucks in. This probably doesn't show well there, but this is why you want to watch this screen. This, again, I know it's a snug fit, but there it is. So those are the 2 boxes of all the buildings. At that point in time, we can get the tower in. The focus here, I know it's tight, but that's the purpose. I want this not to shift and to slide and cause all the problems. And I will get into the mini box at the end. I'm just showing you the fitment of how things go back in place. So these can go in any order. They can't. The closed box goes on the bottom. This guy goes next to it. the minis and their virtues slide in. We have the large card box. Then we have the small card box and the miscellaneous tokens. And yeah, so that's the bulk of that. Now what I'm going to do is put this over here and tackle all of the Dark Horde expansion miniatures, with the exception of the quest markers, in a little tray that has two, hopefully, look at that. That felt nice. All right. So what's the best way to look at this? Let's look at it this way. So there's 3 rows on the bottom, and it's really tied to kind of the size of the miniatures. People have used this design. I definitely have stolen it and remixed it. Oh, that base needs to be a little tighter. I did do 3D printed bases. They're 4 millimeters tall. They actually have like a directional indicator on them for how to easily insert them and try to lock better. There are some slight variations between the ink they use to give this the default coloring, the size of the objects being a little different. So they're pretty snug on some, they're a little loose on others, and I really tried to come up with a locking mechanism to hold them in place. So I'll show it probably on one of the other ones. But, you know, gaze, the 3 similar size bases and ascending height, Bane's tucked in there, Grave Maw, and as you can see, Spine Fiends, Trolls, Brigands, what's that? Nuri, Spiders, Wolves, the 2 Dragons, and if I've done this right, oh, fail. I didn't do it right. I'd hoped. But at the same point in time, you know, there is a lip, and obviously if they get enough speed, they can beat the lip, and because I did these hexagonally, you know, there is kind of a right way and a wrong way to face them. I squeezed the hexagons in one direction to help them hold on a little better to the minis, because most of what you're worried about is, you know, having the minis out and in play. And there is a lip, but doesn't seem to be significant enough on that side, or at least on the blue bases. Maybe I make my blues a little tighter. And then we could take a look at the 2 side walls. So we'll move this over here. And on the side walls, these I believe, yeah, a little better done. So, you know, if I might have to make a slight tweak or see what I've done wrong, maybe my bases are a little beat up. But yeah, that's the idea, is that they should be able to hold you in place because there's just this tiny lip on the front end of it. Mormos, Strigas, and then obviously the other 3, the larger adversaries, right? Ash Strider, Utuku, whatever his name is, and the Titan. And then over here, you just have the Oryx and the Lemure. And it's probably going to be really, really difficult to see this on stream, on the camera, but there's actually little text areas that are written in there. And unfortunately, I used a shiny filament like a jerk. But they do show you, you know, who goes where. The 3 that are in this row are printed down below here. So it's hard to see when the minis are in. But yeah, this really is done and thought of trying to help people out. Again, not something I completely invented, but I definitely reinvented to include space for the bases and to, you know, try to hold it a little more snug than I wanted. The good news is that this really doesn't move around in the box much. So, you know, you're not going to have to worry about these guys popping loose. Now, they may pop out of the bases and then rattle around loose, but for the most part, these they're not going anywhere. And yeah, so that is my design and my ideas. We'll see how well this works. It goes this way. This is meant to go one direction. Let's sit down. Oh, that's so refreshing when things work the way they're supposed to. I didn't do anything for the skull bag. I just figured, you know, put it on top of the tower, maybe protect it from where the guild tokens lie across it so that it's not, you know, being a big problem once that's in place. Because this area is a little taller, You can go that way. I generally go this way. Again, there's just a little height advantage there, so it's going to get the most sync, if you will, going in over there. There's your directionals, all your directions, instructions. And then just the slightest bit of box lift, but you know, if I come over here, it'll work itself out. And that is, hey, it's upside down on one camera, right side on the other. Take your pick. So everything of Return to Dark Tower in the original box to make it easier to take it and play. It does add some weight to a pretty heavy game to begin with, but I'll be selling the STLs for this through my Etsy store, and hopefully you'll want to pick them up and print out a copy for yourself. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.